New disturbing twist in the Penn State child sex abuse scandal that comes only 2 weeks after the arrest of former assistant coach Jerry Sandusky, accused of sexually abusing 8 boys. FoxNews.com has obtained financial records showing Sandusky's youth charity, called the Second Mile, paid Penn State $250,000 to run sleepover camps on campus. This was after Sandusky was barred from bringing children onto the main campus. Let's examine the fallout from with our legal panel. Trial attorney Rachel Self joins us, defense attorney David Wohl. David, let me start with you because you have, over the last 20 years, represented a great many children who have been sexually abused. This latest fact uncovered by FoxNews.com, does that increase the culpability of Penn State?
Greg, I got to tell you, my experience is, especially with boys, is they have a very difficult time revealing or disclosing molestation. So the fact that there are only 8 victims now, don't count on that number holding. Now, if they knew about the molestation by Sandusky, which apparently they did, and they allowed these sleepovers to take place in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars of remuneration, I mean, that rises to the level of willfully subjecting children to potential child molestation. Now, hopefully, God forbid, there are no victims that took place from victimization.
David, are you talking about a conspiracy to hide crimes, which is a crime in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's not only a conspiracy, if this is true, Greg, but it's aiding and abetting potentially other crimes such as accessory to child molestation. It's extraordinary the criminal culpability that could take place here among any of the officials who allowed this to happen.
Rachel, what about the civil liability here? Because we've done a lot of research. I talked to some lawyers on this. We confirmed it with the Attorney General's office, the Governor's office. In terms of civil lawsuits, 6 out of the 8 alleged victims identified in this grand jury report here are out of luck. The statute of limitations ran as to the entities, the charity, and Penn State.
Well, I'm actually not quite sure, and I appreciate that you spoke with these individuals, Greg, but I actually don't necessarily agree with that, because under Pennsylvania statute, and that did used to be the case prior to 2002, but in August of 2002, the statute was enacted to allow an individual from the date of reaching majority of 18 years old to tack on an additional 12 years and continue to be able to pursue.
But that's only as to the abuser, not to entities that may have been enablers.
Well, I think that the statute, and this could be a legal argument, Greg, the statute is broad in that it says a civil action arising from child sexual abuse. And I also think that the tolling of the statute, a very effective legal argument could be made, that the tolling of the statute stopped because of the fraud perpetrated by the university in trying to cover this up.
Joe Paterno, months before this indictment was handed down, transferred ownership of his home to his wife for $1. That suggests that he knew what was about to happen, and at least 2 of the 8 victims could sue Joe Paterno and Penn State. Can he continue to protect his assets, or can he get around that?
Well, I think that ultimately speaking, he's definitely going to be a named party in several of these lawsuits. I think criminal liability is going to be very difficult to attach to him because he did comply with the criminal mandatory reporting statutes by notifying his superiors of what was being.
David, I want to jump in with you on that. Joe Paterno is not out of the woods yet. If it turns out that what he told the grand jury is not what other witnesses are saying about Paterno, he could still face criminal prosecution, couldn't he?
Well, he could still face perjury charges if that turns out that he was willfully lying to the grand jury, and those are federal charges, no doubt about that. But he could also face charges. I'm not convinced that he won't face charges for being a mandated reporter. And the statute in Pennsylvania says specifically he must notify a person in charge at the university, and under these circumstances,
which
that
he
would
did.
be the campus police,
Schultz
that would be the campus
Curley.
police, not the athletic director or the finance director. What do they have to do with criminal activity? It would be the police. That would be the appropriate person in charge.
Folks, we're going to have to leave it at that. It's a complicated subject, and thank you both. Rachel Self, David Wohl, sad story all the way around.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Heather's Outdoors.